myth, the living legend, and talent of all, Mr. Travis Scott. How are you today?
I am about as fine dandy to get of what's going on in the state this week.
That's true.
We are in, of course, still suffering the ravages of the unknown virus of unspecified origin. Thank you very much. Sydney, ruling Australia since 1788.
Yep. Because of them, we couldn't decide that Melbourne was the capital. Because of them, we're probably going to end up going into lockdown again because they are arseats.
And they are mostly responsible for Canberra. Which is,
That's a war crime.
Really the biggest issue we're talking. Roads go in circles. It's very cold, but they do have porn and fireworks. So, you know, something to write about.
Yeah. 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Successes and babies. Now, apologise for coming on a little bit late. It's just been crazy busy. I am now working with a new company. I won't say who they are, just so that they have a little bit of anonymity and there's a little bit of mystique and mysticism about me. But it probably means I will be talking about more game stuff. There's a hint, that's all you need to know. But this week, our chain movie of the week is the wonderful classic, the genuine classic of The Great Escape from 1963, picked by Travis after last week's 4-hour hurdle of Hamlet. We will be talking, there obviously will be spoilers for this because the finale of Loki Season 1 just aired and we have both watched it, so we will throw up the spoilers for that and there will be time codes, as I've been desperately trying to get into the habit of. We are going to possibly talk a little bit about the Chris Pratt Tomorrow Wars. Travis went down memory lane for Mad Max 2. He also watched the new Marvel movie Black Widow. I took in a relatively new shows that starring Alan Tudyk, Resident Alien, and I'll also finally get around to giving Demon Slayer.
I'm not going to let you bypass the fact that I did get around to finally watching Destination Wedding. So
I can't hear that. What?
Yes, I did watch Destination Wedding, and here's the thing:
they're talking about Indiana Jones 4. What?
That'll never happen. Destination Wedding. I will have a quick chat about Destination Wedding. And here's the thing: it's not what you think it is.
Crypticism, ladies and gentlemen, that is a tease. So we will find out what maybe at the end.
It'll be a quick, but I'm not going to let that one go.
Well, let's get straight on into our chain movie of the week, the 1963 classic war movie, The Great Escape.
Quick note: you might notice George's background looks fairly similar to my background.
We're not in the same
way. We're certainly not in the same. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Yes.
And the echo and the fact, so we are certainly back in the same room again this week. Just in case anybody's wondering why things look a little bit different. Natural disasters being what they are.
Woohoo! We are the show that even God can't cancel.
And God knows he's trying. They said a fucking plague, and it didn't stop these guys. The Great Escape.
Yes.
I actually couldn't remember if I'd seen this all the way through, and actually now I've watched it this week on Monday. I don't know if I ever had actually sat for the whole thing.
Really?
I don't think I realized I'd forgotten how long this movie is. It's a 3-hour movie. And the first thing I think you notice about this film is the score.
Oh yeah,
you know, that everybody. If you don't think you know, and it's like it's one of the most top 5 most memorable film scores of all time. Up there with Jaws and The Godfather and
James Bond.
It instantly takes you to this film.
Yeah.
What's it about? Allied prisoners of war plan several hundred of their number to escape from a German camp during World War II. This is based on real events.
Yeah.
And the film quite accurate at the start goes, we've combined some characters and compressed the timeline, but it is based on a real thing. It did happen. It took over 600 prisoners over around a year of digging to actually to achieve what this happened, what the film's based on. We have a bunch of Allied prisoners who are mostly Air Force
Mm-hmm.
in a Luftwaffe run German POW camp, and they are all committed to the idea of trying to escape. It's a great line at the start where the officer in charge says it is the duty of every officer to attempt to escape
Yes.
in the most British way possible.
Oh yeah, yeah. They're kind of playing the stereotypes quite a bit with it. So like the British are very, very stoic and gentlemanly in the way that 1960s war movies portrayed them. The Scottish and Irish characters are stereotyped. The fact that Steve McQueen, one of the kind of easily cool characters of all time of cinema, is the laid back American guy. And then, but it all kind of works.
It does. This is a strange film, actually, for me. It's really a film of two halves, if you will. If you've not seen it, and you're curious,
I'm not going to throw up spoilers.
No, I'm not going to throw up spoilers for a
60-year-old movie.
I think that's fair. If you haven't got around to it yet. This is where I think the fact's going to remind me that I hadn't seen this, or if I had seen this all the way through, my goodness, it must have been a very long time ago. Mm-hmm. So it's a film of two halves. I feel that the first half of the film is almost a comedy. It's where a lot of jokes, like, you know, and for the first 20 minutes, I was sort of going, this really uncomfortably reminds me of Hogan's Heroes.
Yeah, and it's very true, because you do have kind of borderline slapstick comedy of where they're kind of pulling out the slats in the beds, and one of them just jumps up and just and this very British style of cutaway where the comedy action happens, the physical comedy happens, and then there's just that silence and for like 3 beats, and then it cuts away. It's something that you'll always see in, like, if you go to any classic Norman Wisdom movies or Carry On movies, that's the style that comedy is in, and it's like, okay.
And the theme song you just gave us a quick rendition. What was that? I'm doing it wrong, but anyway, it's very comedic. It's lighthearted, and all the way through, like, and it's playing while they're being walked into the cooler, which is essentially, solitary confinement. And you're like, solitary confinement ain't fun.
No, it's not. Especially they've been so like, okay, 2 weeks just in a room.
2 weeks cooler. Yeah. And it's been that very sort of fluffy, lighthearted tunes being played while they're walking in there, and I'm like, this is really weird mood setting. Yeah. In another film, being sentenced to a cooler would probably be played as fairly sinister or
no music at all. Like when Andy Dufresne has to go into solitary confinement, it's just stark. This is lighthearted, and I guess it kind of makes sense because of the way that the story goes. Of they go in there, you kind of get two forms of conversation about the prison itself. These prisoners of war are kind of essentially labeled as professional prison escapers. They're ones that have been in repeated prison escapes, and they're proud of it, and they're always going to try it. It's their duty. Versus the Nazi side of it, where they're kind of like, this is how we're doing it. We are a prison designed to stop people from getting out. And it's a bit of that to and fro. Like, they instantly start trying to escape, and at the same time, the Nazis was like, yeah, you're not just going to be able to walk out because you put someone's coat on. But as the period of time that they're in the prison goes, that comedy feeling, that comedy music does.
It goes away for a long time. You don't hear that tune again until probably towards much later. And this is where the second half of the film takes a very different stark path. And this is where I'm going to get into 60-year-old spoilers here. Is I was sure I remembered Steve McQueen escaping at the end of the film. And he doesn't. And I didn't remember, like, POWs being fucking machine gunned by Nazis. I just didn't. I completely somehow blacked that out of my memory. That the second half of the film, or the last third, really, is actually very dark.
Yeah, it's a manhunt movie, and it's not a positive one for pretty much everyone.
It's really quite upsetting in a way, and Yeah, it was a weird one for me. I feel like I'm in here criticizing a classic for the second show in a row. I don't know. I felt that was quite jarring for me. That your first half is played for laughs, and then it turns into, as you sort of say, a fairly a manhunt film. And your characters are all sort of shot killed. A lot of them in fairly inauspicious circumstances without a great deal of ceremony. So it didn't necessarily ruin the film for me. It was just like, I think I forgot all this happened. And it's a weird juxtaposition of that first and second half. It's strange.
I actually kind of really appreciated it. I liked it. I thought it worked well as a storytelling narrative tool, and I feel like it particularly the very last kind of 5 minutes of the movie where the kind of the pseudo self-appointed leader of the prisoners in the camp is told of how many of the escapees have been shot and killed. And he is obviously shaken by the number, especially when he learns that they were just basically taken out into a field and just shot by the I think it was the SS that were responsible for those ones. And then you get, again, spoilers for a 62-year-old movie, you get Steve McQueen's character comes back in and he just says, "Oh, where is everyone?" And they kind of cavalierly say they're dead, and life goes on. And it's a very British attitude movie.
I think it's also probably relevant for, to some degree, people who were at that stage of their careers of being soldiers or being in the war. These were soldiers who were captured. Probably they were flyers, so most of them were likely shot down. So it probably would be understandable if people at that point in time were a little blasé about death. About losing friends. You'd probably be a little bit detached from that kind of thing. I don't know. Fairness to me, I've never served in a war zone, but I'd like to think that might be something that you'd start to experience. You might be a little bit more distant from that kind of thing happening.
I wonder if it's also a bit of a tale of two generations as well, because 1963 the movie came out. That's 20 years, less than 20 years since the end of the war.
Well, many of the people in this film served in the war. Donald Pleasance, for example, was actually shot down and captured by the Germans and tortured and held as a prisoner of war. Some of the people in this film, a couple of them of the German characters were POWs in the German army during the war as well. So people like Richard Attenborough did serve in some role during the war as well. So you're right, like these guys, a lot of them were actual former soldiers, which just added a degree of believability to it.
But I wonder if like that light-hearted, I won't say really light-hearted, but that level of brevity that they have at the start is to make this story, which is a very sad story, all things told, a little bit more open and accessible, because probably they're not going to go, 20 years after the fact, people who is still reeling from the effects of it, we're just going to show them a harrowing experience of it. I don't think anyone wants to be reminded of that so soon after the terror of the scenario.
That is an interesting observation, because like Hogan's Heroes premiered in 1965, so but that's probably the same sort of thing. You were probably at that point in time where you could take the piss out of it. And I was talking to someone about this just the other night, was that the different phases a community or a society can go through processing a traumatic experience. And we look at World War II as a traumatic experience. They went through phases of dealing with it. You think of the films that came out immediately after the war and through the 50s were very heroic pieces. John Wayne is, and Taking Back the Philippines or something, The Longest Day, very films that really played up on the heroism of the Allied
The
soldiers.
heroes were cut and dry heroes. The villains were villainous.
Whereas we probably, by this point in time, we can actually come around to, well, we can start laughing at, we can start laughing at, we can start making comedies about the war. Films like this, characters with a little bit of grey. I was going to say the commandant of the camp, von Luger, played by Hannes Messmer, who I think was one of the guys who was actually a former German soldier, was a little bit grey, right? He wasn't a stereotypical, purely evil Nazi. He had a set of morals running his prisoners. So, like, we are giving you all of this stuff. We are giving you farming tools. We expect you to use them as tools. We want you to essentially be as comfortable as you can be. Like, that's not a typical thing when you think of Nazis. No, it's a little bit sympathetic in a way, really. Yeah. Like, in the way when he's has his command taken off him at the end of the film, he walks off as
you feel sympathy.
A little bit of sympathy for him, for a Nazi, which is then you can, and it's interesting the way they process that from there into films in the 80s and 90s about it, where you could have a film like Schindler's List, which is maybe obviously a different aspect of a war, or Saving Private Ryan, where you could portray a war as hell angle.
Yeah.
And I mean, part of me wonders if that's the Second World War being filtered through the Vietnam War.
Yeah,
that's a big discussion. And we've got far more intelligent than we're capable of. Interesting, I watched we won't talk about it too deeply, but I had a bit of spare time this week and I watched an episode of a Desilu Playhouse Theatre on YouTube.
Okay.
Rod Serling's first ever thing he had produced for television before the Twilight Zone. And I think it was called A Moment in Time or A Matter of Time or something of that nature. Okay. So it was about a guy who's transported back in time to Pearl Harbor and tries to warn everybody. And I was sort of using it interesting to see how they treated Pearl Harbor in the late 50s.
Yeah.
Being a singularly traumatic event and trying to juxtapose that how we treat 9/11.
Yeah.
Again, a far deeper discussion than people are asked to qualified to have. And we're off topic. That never happens.
What a surprise.
I was shocked to find that James Corburn's character, Cedric, was supposed to be Australian.
Yeah, that kind of threw me for a spin as well. So like, oh, okay. All right. Doesn't really sound very
It doesn't sound like he's not doing an accent at all. The only reason I figured he was Australian is someone said, "Are you English?" or something at the end of a war. And he said, "No, I'm Australian."
Yeah.
Or someone mentioned a kangaroo or a koala or something at some point.
It was just this throwaway line. It's like, oh, well, he did say Australian, but that's it.
It's like the worst. I mean, I'd say, like, is it worse than Tarantino's Australian accent in Django Unchained, considering he's not even trying? I think the bad accent is better because at least he's trying to do it. Whereas you're just giving up without even putting in any effort in the case of the great James Coburn here.
Sean Connery.
Did he ever do an Aussie accent?
He may very well have. We just don't know.
I don't think so. We crossed as a Spanish peacock.
Spanish peacock. He spent many years in Japan with no slight hints of Spanish or Japanese.
Or of course, my favourite, the Scottish Russian sub commander.
Oh yeah,
down for Red October with the comrades. I was also surprised that Charles Bronson's character in this was a very young Charles Bronson. You sort of think of him as these Death Wish films, but
well, this kind of sits between his Once Upon a Time in the West and Death Wish. So he's a really buff guy, and he just looks very tough, and his face is just chiseled but not old. And it's weird kind of looking at him because I think his most famous role is Death Wish. And the fact that it was parodied in The Simpsons, there's like Death Wish 12. I wish I was dead.
Or he was on the Howdy Doody show, or so he played the sheriff. He was like, but yeah, it's one of those dated gags I don't think I got, but. He was impressive, and I thought it was an interesting angle for them to actually then have he be the guy. Yeah. He's a big, badass, tough-looking guy. He's the guy who gets claustrophobic and too scared to go in the tunnel.
And he's the only one who manages to really escape. And it's like, I guess there's the point of it. It's like he secretly, you saw, what's his name? Where is he? The Scottish guy.
John Layton, the Tunnel King.
Yes. He's the kind of almost the coin flip alternative of Charles Bronson's character, where he starts with this optimism, hooks up with Steve McQueen's character, but then over time you see it wearing him down, and he's not able to fight through, and he ends up just making a suicide run for the fence. And that is he was a very tragic character, because you just know the way that it is portrayed and the way that war and history has been taught, that happened not just in Nazi camps, but every other prisoner of war camps. There were people who just couldn't take it and did whatever they could. Whereas Charles Bronson, he's got this level of machismo, and he's just going in and tunneling, and you see him very quickly kind of get in and get his hands dirty with this job, and then he's this personal breakdown and the revelation of him having claustrophobia and him not being able to get through the tunnel and it terrifying him. It's like, okay, he's gone through the same shit. We need to give him a happy ending. I kind of feel like it's like, good. And they didn't make an overly silly thing of it. It's just you see him getting on a boat and just drifting off to whatever end. It's not, like, 6 months later in Paris, I'm having a cup of tea with my new wife, or anything like that. It's just left nebulous, and for me, I just believe that he was able to reclaim some semblance of normalcy.
I think the same.
Let's just talk about the cast a bit more, because this is one hell of a cast.
It's pretty special. We've got, of course, we talked about Steve McQueen being one of the biggest, coolest action stars of his day. James Garner, again, huge star. Attenborough, Charles Bronson.
These
are the ones I'm familiar with. Donald Pleasance, of course, famous for Halloween and a number of other things. James Coburn. Those are the ones that I'm familiar with.
Yeah, same. Those are.
I think some of these others are probably people have been someone out there going, oh my God, I can't believe you haven't mentioned.
How did you not mention Nigel Russell?
Nigel Stock or something, right? Like, I mean, he was the third guy I look from the right on Doctor Who or something. Some of these guys' names are maybe lost to history a little bit, and they've been big names in their day. But that's a hell of a collection of talent.
Hell yeah. And they each have that opportunity to shine as well. And I'll tell you something. Whenever I think of Richard Attenborough, I instantly go to Jurassic Park.
Of course.
And I've watched this movie multiple times. And the first time he appears, I look at him and go, who's that? He just looks so very different. And
he's so young.
Yeah, and so unassuming in the role. He's like the choreographer of this big escape, and he's just, everyone else around him seems to be taller, more manly, masculine, and just more present. But every time that he's in a scene, it's just, he's captivating.
He does it. He owns a screen a little bit. He's got that kind of charisma.
Yeah.
He's an interesting guy because he's famous. But why?
Because he was Father Christmas.
I mean, like, I look at his stuff here. Apart from Jurassic Park and The Great Escape, he directed Gandhi in the 80s.
That got him a lot of attention, yeah.
The Bridge Too Far.
Yeah.
Perv. But
that's
like,
another great one.
Otherwise, it's all a bit meh.
Miracle on 50.
That's a remake.
Yeah.
It's not even the original. If he was in the original Jimmy Stewart film, it's a decent remake. I don't know. Is he maybe famous because he's got a famous brother?
Maybe.
Was he a theatre actor?
He was a theatre actor, for sure. Yes. I think it's a combination of all of that stuff, and just remember how successful Jurassic Park was. And that made him, especially the fact that he played that line in that movie of lovable grandfather figure, and also morally corrupt guy for everything that he was doing. And it's supposed to be this big revelation where he finally is willing to let it go and move on and save his grandchildren and all of that stuff. But he played that so well that I feel like, certainly for me, that really connected. And I remember watching Gandhi and just being blown away by it. And it was kind of one of the first grown-up Oscar movies that I ever chose to watch. So it stuck with me a bit more, and I just thought it was beautifully directed. Ben Kingsley was phenomenal as the character of Gandhi, portraying Gandhi. And so I feel like that gave a lot of cachet to his name for me. But he's not really been mainstream aside from a couple of spots here and there, really. But then I guess the same could kind of be said for, like, you think of, I mean, for me, I'd kind of maybe put someone like Jeffrey Rush in there, but he has done a lot more mainstream affairs, especially
after the Pirates films,
yeah. But otherwise, he was doing things like Shine and The King's Speech and things like that just sort of like not necessarily box office gold, but you look at them and you go, holy shit, he's done something really good.
He was also in was he in Shakespeare in Love? He was in Elizabeth. He got around after he won it Oscar. Yeah. He cashed in. He made bang.
I miss him in stuff though. I want to see.
I think it's the whole lawsuit thing.
Certainly didn't help.
Didn't help the situation. Really, despite the fact that he won said lawsuit, and I think he got a lot of money off newspapers and stuff for that one. Yeah. So he has, of course, accused of things which have not been found to have happened. Do not want to get sued as well.
No.
But sometimes these things stick. Yeah. It's quite a cast. The film looks incredible. I mean, it's
aged well.
It's beautifully shot.
Yeah.
The colors just still pop on the screen. It's like I am by no means smart enough or talented enough to know anything about the technical aspects of how they shot it. But films don't look like this anymore. No. It is of its time, but it's beautifully of its time. Some films, you sort of say they don't look like they haven't aged well, but this look, it kept taking me back to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where there's, of course, this, if you haven't seen it, there is a scene in that film where Leo DiCaprio is basically inserted into The Great Escape as his character Rick Dalton, having been in the running to play the role played by Steve McQueen. And it took me back to that scene, how gorgeous that scene looked in that film. And the whole film itself is just incredibly shot. And I wish wish there was a little bit more of that kind of thing going on today.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, unfortunately, aside from a handful of directors and some even fewer cinematographers, you wouldn't really be able to easily pick X movie by Y director, because they've kind of found their routine. And I think that's part of the problem I have with a lot of the Disney stuff now is like, okay, they are making movies to make $1 billion, and they know you can go to this extreme here as a high and this extreme here as a low. So you don't get much opportunity for director flair or like the Marvel movie palette. There's a palette for these movies, and it's like, okay, how does that sit in amongst all the others? And everything is meticulously detailed to the point of almost being vanilla. Whereas this, it's because it's a standalone movie, which standalone movies are always easier to construct because you're not thinking about what came before, what comes after, what's running in tangent with this and all of that stuff. But you are able to, as a lot of animation companies do, they wring out every element of every frame of film because it takes so long to produce it. Think of Lord of the Rings, like the attention to detail on the set design and the way that it's filmed to just show off this wonderful, really lived in, authentic world. And that prison, authentic. The way that they worked in and around it, it just felt genuine. And so that sort of stuff sits outside of time. And it just is that always. It's wonderful.
Now, I think if you've got nothing else to say on this one, I think you have your next move in mind.
I do, yeah. And in spirit of watching things that we have not watched, I'm going to follow Steve McQueen to possibly his most iconic role of Bullet.
Home of the greatest car chase of all time. Or
Depending on who you believe, yeah, for sure.
One of the greatest car chases.
It's certainly, I think it wouldn't be too far to say this is the original blueprint for how all modern car chases have been evolved from. This is the starting point because it did some amazing things. And Steve McQueen was a very, very proficient motorbike and motorcycle rider. And I was looking at some of the facts about Great Escape, and there were scenes where he was, they were cutting it together that he was riding away on his bike, and he was also playing one of the Nazis that was chasing after him because he was just more competent on a bike going across the dirt tracks and things like that. He was really, really strong, and he doesn't do all of the stunts in Bullet, but he does a significant amount of the driving and even the casual driving in this. It's
I told him he didn't do the jump in the Great Escape, so but they probably wouldn't let him for insurance purposes, right? Kill Steve McQueen.
Oops.
You know, there's a lawsuit waiting to happen. But your suggestion, of course, for where I'll go after this is directed by Peter Yates, who directed Krull. I said Krull on VHS. We reviewed Krull last year on my other podcast, available now on Spotify. The throwback, if you want to hear a little bit about what I thought about Krull, because we are not going to be watching fucking Krull after next week. I'll tell you right.
I think I've managed, ladies and gentlemen, I've managed to get us to a point where he won't force me to watch a musical.
No, as in I would have to do it too. So it's of course starring starring the great Steve McQueen. We've got Jacqueline Bisset, Robert Vaughn, Robert Duvall. There's a few places. In fact, I actually kind of already know what I'm going to do next. So
there we go.
But this is I think I have seen this film before, and it's I went on a movie tour once in San Francisco, and this is set in one of the most famous movies set in San Francisco. So I think that's what inspired me to actually check it out. And it's a quality film, and that's something to look forward to.
Yeah, and to get ahead of ourselves, for anyone who doesn't know, Bullet is an all-guts, no-glory San Francisco cop becomes determined to find the underground kingpin that killed the witness in his protection. Simple, easy. I'm really excited about this. I am looking forward to this.
It's one of those films. It's a filming education for everyone here.
Yeah,
a little bit.
I think so.
So yeah, actually, I just changed where I'm going to go next. But there's so many options. It's a
that's for next week.
It's a veritable delight. But it is not today's conversation. It is next week's conversation on that topic. Should we talk a little about Loki?
Yeah, let's get.
You're talking about Disney and Marvel.
Yeah, so. Disney and Marvel. We're talking about Loki. That is 33 minutes, 52 seconds. We are going to be going in hard on the whole season, especially the finale. So if you haven't watched, skip ahead 15, 20 minutes. I am going to put up the spoilers cast notice now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Spoilers incoming. So I think we talk episode 5 and 6 because we didn't get to So in episode 5, Loki and Sylvie end up both being pruned. Pruned,
or what? Yeah, and basically end up at the end of time.
Yes,
and whereupon they meet some of the more interesting. I'd say not some of the most interesting characters in the series aside from Owen Wilson, including original Loki, played by the friend of a show, Richard Grant. I wish he was a friend of a show. But one of our favorite actors up there was Sam Rockwell, who absolutely steals every scene he's in as original Loki. And you're like, why couldn't we have a show about him?
Yes,
and Alligator Loki, somehow, despite having no lines, also was significantly more interesting.
I'm more invested in Alligator Loki than I ever have been about Baby Yoda.
Absolutely, it's all about alligator Loki. We get a little exposition about where they are and what they might be able to do to find out who is the real big bad behind what's going on. We get to see President Loki, I think it is, very briefly.
Yep. There's a lot of cameos. Like there's a shot where it kind of comes down a cliffside, and there's a jar with a frog in it that's Throky, and it's Thor frog or something like that. And it's like, okay, that's the thing. There's a Thanos copter that's ripped straight out of the comic books, and probably have James Gunn to thank for that, because he did post like in 2015 about, so like, I can't wait to see the Thanos copter.
I believe Chris Hemsworth did voice the frog.
Yes, apparently
so I didn't even realize the frog had lines, but
ribbit.
It's a nice little.
Sorry, it was a riveting line.
It's nice talking to everyone tonight.
And that's how the show.
And that's how the show ends. I thought the production design of this episode was wonderful. It looked good. All those little Easter egg things. Like there's a big cloud thing because Marvel loves Killer Clouds.
Oh, yeah, monster.
Goliath, which is what consumes all the things that end up in this end of time place that are pruned. And the original Loki and Alligator Loki, and so actually hide them in their lair, which is an old bowling alley, I think.
Yeah.
And behind them, little nods. There was a video game called Polybius, which is a famous urban myth about a video game that the US government designed to test people, who would give you weird psychosomatic, make you dizzy and lose control of yourself. It's a whole Wikipedia article. Look it up.
What you're talking about right now is what I was referring to before. It's like that, making every frame count. And this is the sort that episode 5 was one. It was just got ripped apart online for sort of like, oh, what's this in the background here? What this is reference to that and things like that. And so like you could, that's why this barren landscape of nothingness was so compelling, because they just really went, okay, we are going to invest.
They painted to the edges. I heard someone say that once about Peter Jackson, and I think they did that in this episode too. They very rarely do give us anything to go off. And I thought it's a bit of fan service here. I like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the end, the finale of the episode, Sylvie and Loki managed to enchant the cloud thing.
A Thor or
Goliath,
yes,
to go away or something, and so it gets out of the way, and there's a big castle thing, and they start walking towards it, and then we end on that note. Meanwhile, Mobius has found his way back to the TVA, which will pay off in episode 6. In episode 6, we finally we follow Sylvie and Loki into the castle, and we meet finally the big bad.
Every thread is tied off. Everything is entirely wrapped up.
Not. We meet Jonathan Majors.
Yes.
Who is the guy who's running the castle.
The one who survived.
One who remains or something.
The man who remains,
Yeah, and we are not given his name.
Nope.
We don't know who this person is.
Nope.
You watch Hard, so you do not know who this guy is. He's asked at one point, who are you? He goes, I've gone by many names,
It just goes to stupid things like, I've been called the man who survives and the idiot and things like that. It's like, okay, none of those are actually ones that I can go, oh, that's a hint. No, it's just like, okay.
A bit like WandaVision, there have been some theories kicking around about who was going to be. Was it Krang or Kang or something was going to be? Or
there was Kang. There was some people were kind of going, is it actually going to be Galactus?
Or is it going to be, I've heard, original Loki? Because people were like, Richard D. Grant's credited in 3 episodes, but he's only been in 2. But he was in the recap at the start of this episode, so there he goes in 3.
And I accidentally watched it with subtitles. So Greta Thunberg is
in
unofficially
canon. I did notice you said, "How dare you?"
Yeah,
so I caught that.
Yeah.
So she's canon now.
Yep.
But I guess frustratingly, if you're looking for closure, you're not going to get it. I'm sorry. Marvel, in their grand wisdom, have decided that no one gets closure for Disney Plus shows. unless you consider the big speech at the end of Do Soldier, Do Better, which I didn't really like, but maybe you did. That's as close as we've got to closure.
All three of the shows that have come on Disney Plus have been nothing but launching points for next movies. And the fact that two of them are directly leading into Doctor Strange means that they clearly needed to have another Doctor Strange movie beforehand before going into the Multiverse of Madness. They've run it, like I was saying to Travis beforehand, they're running to catch up with themselves. They've got all of this stuff planned ahead of time, and they're like, oh, yeah, you know what, that's a little bit thin on that side, and we do need to, do we want to waste another movie introducing a new Captain America? Let's do it in a TV show. That way, we give time to these performers who had a little bit of fan love, but they didn't get enough time on screen. And that's all this. This is kind of contract service, I feel.
I mean, we weren't necessarily opposed to Falcon and Winter Soldier. I thought it was fine.
Yeah, it was
good.
All the shows have been fine.
WandaVision was great in parts. It just finished poorly for me.
Yeah.
I think we said it the first time we talked about Loki. For me, I think this is potentially the weakest of the three shows so far.
Yeah.
There was a slab of 10 minutes of exposition in the middle of a final episode.
Yeah.
Of them just talking to each other.
And nothing gets revealed.
Nothing actually coming out of that conversation.
They're talking in circles.
And it's just like, this is kind of boring. Yeah. And then there was a sword fight, which was also boring.
Yep.
And then there was, so big spoiler here.
Spoilers.
The kiss, we've been waiting for 3 or 4 episodes between Loki and Sylvie, which is essentially between Loki and Loki. So it's really masturbation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we'd all do it if we could. But, you know, then it was a bit, again, I was like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, you called it because you called it that basically, okay, well, curse your sudden and inevitable betrayal.
Yeah. It's like, oh, no, someone has shown a bit of intimacy. Yes, they're going to be betrayed. Sorry. Whoops. And I feel like this does a big disservice to Jonathan Majors because he was enjoyable to watch. He was entertaining. He was, again, like I talked about it with Richard Attenborough in Jurassic Park, and playing that line between adorable and kind of corrupt. They keep trying to go back to it as if it's almost like the writers are going, oh, I want to talk about the moral ramifications of deleting someone from the timeline for the greater good. And it just, they're never able to actually go down that path. And Jonathan Majors plays this role of someone who's been on his own, aside from a digitized Miss Minute.
I'm going to share my screen here for a second because I've just seen something here while I was listening to you talk.
Is it a cat in a basket?
He's not a cat in the basket. This is the IMDb page for our friend here, Mr. Majors. So this is the gentleman who plays He Who Remains. This is his character's credited title.
Yeah.
He is also credited as being coming up to star in another Marvel film, Ant-Man 3, Quantumania. Let's have a look at his title.
Kang the Conqueror. There we go.
Now, by no means can you use IMDb. I'll stop that. But you can see what I mean. You can have a look at yourself. It's right here. I did not make that up. That is by no means a guaranteed thing that's going to happen. I think Quentin Tarantino had Kill Bill 3 sitting on his directorial thing for about 15 years.
Yeah.
I almost guarantee that's not going to happen. But if that's a bit of a spoiler, though, if that's real.
Yeah, well, I remember now one of the things that he said, I have been called the Conqueror.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, but that's a very broad one because there are a few people who have been referred to as conquerors. But I don't know, the fact that, again, that it's further evidence that they're using these to seed the movies, that no matter the quality, because the production value of all three shows has been great, they're still being treated like the redheaded stepchild and only allowed to come out for very select tool-like purposes of narration where the movies have not been able to fill in as much of the blanks as they really want to.
It's a bit disappointing. I think the whole series, I know people love it. It's got a very good rating on IMDb. It's an 8.9 overall for the series. People seem to like it.
Yeah.
I personally found the whole thing underwhelming. I found Loki's arc deeply, deeply underwhelming.
It went nowhere.
I found Sylvie. We talked about it. I'm sorry. I found her underwhelming.
Mhm.
I don't think the actress was a good choice. Like I said last time, she just reminded me a lot of Jodie Whittaker. That's not a good thing. And yeah, but I found at the end, I was going, why exactly does she want to destroy the TVA so badly? Why does she want to kill this guy so badly? Why does she want to kill Jonathan Majors, He Who Remains? I was sitting going, what was her motivation again for all of this? And I found myself going, I really don't remember.
We're never told. Even in, I think it was episode 4, she asks very plainly, what was my crime? What did I do to warrant being deleted off? And there's no answer. And it's like, oh, okay, we have to go through a whole second season to maybe get an answer to that, which at that point is going to be a year and a half divorced from that point. And the movies are coming back out. They are being released again. So the story is going to continue.
I mean, there's the big reveal. The after credit scene in this is a reveal that Loki will return in season 2. And you're like, fine, I guess. I'm not really that excited about it because I don't know. Maybe
I like Tom Hiddleston. I like him.
He does good things as Loki, but
I'm just not interested.
I'm with you here in this one. We're singing from the same sort of hymn sheet. Yeah, I know. Maybe we've been too hard, but everyone else seems to enjoy it. I just sort of thought it was a bit, especially after a good episode 5. It seemed to be going in an interesting direction. This one seemed to take away all the things I enjoyed about the last episode.
By the end of episode 5, it's like, okay, they've got one episode left, and they've got a lot of story to tell here, and that seems to be the biggest problem with all 3 of the shows is they don't know how to use the time they've chosen. It's not that they have been given, okay, you only have 6 episodes or you only have 8 episodes.
It's their freaking TV network.
It's their network. They can go, okay, this is the story we want to tell, beginning, middle, and end. How much time do you need? Oh, I can do it in 6. And it's so badly paced.
You made an excellent point there. As I found myself thinking a lot in this episode, we're being very critical. This is not the worst show I've ever seen by any stretch.
No, not at all.
Fine.
Yeah.
It just could have been a lot better.
Yes.
What I found myself thinking was, it felt a little bit like the Star Wars films in the sense that I don't know that I always talk about it. George's whiteboard, his room with the post-it notes became his first book and will become his second book.
Yes.
My girlfriend Michelle's a novelist. She has her stuff planned out in her own way. She has it in her head how she's going to write her book and her story about where it goes. She has a major beat in her head. She may not use. She has her own methodology. But she has one.
Yes.
And our criticism with Star Wars, to take a very short step backwards, was that they didn't really seem to have that. But we got Aiden did a film, then they got Johnson in, and Johnson did whatever the fuck he wanted, which he completely ignored everything that Abrams had set up. Whether you like it or hate it, no judgment. Now, he did ignore what Abrams had set up.
Yeah.
And then they brought Abrams back to go, no, everyone hated that. Let's just go back to what I was planning.
Yeah.
And so it felt, for me anyway, very disjointed as a trilogy. And that was all over the shop.
Yeah.
And I kind of felt like, do these guys actually have an idea in their head about where these things are going to end up? Or they just get to the last episode and go, I don't know, Skybeam.
That's it. I mean, it's now kind of Hollywood stamp of approval, Kevin Feige's method on how to create a successful shared universe. And he has talked about how he has planned everything, at least broad strokes, for all the movies that have come, all the movies that are coming, and all the movies that he wants to kind of go through. It just doesn't feel like that attention is being brought into each individual project, specifically this stuff that we've gotten in the last year and a half, where it is like, all right, we can utilize this because Wanda is going to show up in this, and because we are going to be suddenly introducing the multiverse and things like that. I feel like we probably do need to explain that. Otherwise, we're going to be looking at Zack Snyder length movies, and no one's going to want to do that. And it's going to slow down the pace of the movies, and we want to make sure that they make $1 billion. So let's make a TV show because that's cheaper for us. And go.
I think that's a little hands-off. They still feel significantly. This phase so far feels significantly more disjointed than what came before.
Yeah, and even when you try and go, oh, but these are the first movies. Like, okay, well, let's just look at the first movies of the MCU, and you had solid to great performances that intelligently told a beginning, middle, and end. And they had that little Easter egg at the end to lead into the next one. It wasn't every episode has to have X amount of lead-ins or references back to. And I feel like they're kind of being forced into a situation where they have to make sure, oh yeah, make a quick little subtle nod to this because that's going to be in phase 6, or make sure you bring this in. Maybe people didn't realize how important it is when Tony Stark's daughter says, I love you 3000. That number 3000 is going to be echoed throughout the MCU and things like that. Like, okay, just let them tell a story, get that story done, and maybe add in these other bits intelligently where they fit. Maybe. No? Okay. All right.
I don't think we liked it as much as everybody else did.
It's just the thing. The thing is that it just screams of missed opportunity.
It does. I was very optimistic about it. I think everyone was psyched to see the Loki show. And apart from the aesthetic and some of the episode 1, maybe episode 5, I kind of felt the humor in episode 1. Felt very Rick and Morty, which came from, I think, the writer who's involved in this is very Rick and Morty. Parts of the final episode felt kind of like someone had taken Rick and Morty ideas, sucked the jokes out, and then just put them on screen. But the multiverse idea is very Rick and Morty-esque. That episode 5, we talked about what we liked about that. The rest of it was all a bit meh.
I would like to call out when original Loki is at the end and it's just like glorious purpose. For that brief moment, I saw Richard E. Grant doing his character from How to Get Ahead in Advertising, where he's just been monologuing his way up a hike to the top of a mountain, and he just screams out this bloody fantastic thing, and it's like, oh, I have such a man crush on you, I do not care.
It's great. It would be, like you walk up to Tom Hiddleston in the End of Time ago. We seem to have come on holiday by mistake. There's so many gags in there, Don't threaten me with a dead fish. If you haven't seen With Mel and I, you would just missing out on the best.
Brilliant.
Can I segue into something else Marvel Disney for a second?
Yeah.
And then we can have an ad break, because as an ad, I absolutely have to show everybody this week.
Yeah. So for everyone, the spoilers end at 53 minutes.
So I'll try and keep Black Widow spoiler-free. There'll be one quick spoiler, though, to say that we'll get to that. I went to the drive-in on Friday night to see the latest Marvel superhero film, Black Widow, which we've been waiting for about a year now. I think about a year ago it was supposed to be released.
Yep.
And I'm sorry to say, and George has not seen this yet, so you'll hear from his opinion at some point in the future, I imagine. I think this film kind of missed the mark for me. It was not worth the wait. This is by no means a bad Marvel film. This is a solid, middle-of-the-road Marvel film. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. How many of these? 30 of these now? So you know exactly what to expect. For me, I think upper echelon for Ragnarok, Endgame, Original Avengers, Winter Soldier is you sort of where you're keeping top end. If you're down at the bottom, we're talking, is Incredible Hulk MCU? I think it kind of is.
Well, considering the Abomination is in the Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings trailer, fighting Benedict Wong's character. Yeah.
So I think the Incredible Hulk, that's the Ed Norton one, and Captain Marvel, For Dark World, you're down in that category.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's neither of those. It's kind of in there with the first Thor movie. Kind of like, it was all right. And things that work in this film. David Harbour, and David Harbour. The guy needs his own Red Guardian film. That His jokes in this are brilliant. He is played for laughs a lot. Now I saw this with Michelle at the drive-in, and I said I know exactly what some of the commenters out there are going to say. They're going to go, "Wow, all the male characters are stupid, or evil, or played for laughs." Yeah, it's kind of true. But I think it kind of worked in this film. It wasn't done in a way that it actually, bothered me at all. David Harbour, he being the Red Guardian. Red Guardian is kind of, if you don't know, and this is again poorly explained by the film, was a Soviet version of Captain America. How did that happen? Don't know. When did he get the serum? Don't know. No one says. He just is. But he is. He and Rachel Weisz. The film starts in Ohio in 1994.
Okay.
And they are like the Americans. Remember the TV show The Americans?
Oh,
so they're like a Soviet sleeper cell. Why they're a Soviet sleeper cell after the fall of the Soviet Union? Don't know.
I'm sensing a theme here.
But they are. It made me think of the Americans, which is a good thing because I love that show. And if you haven't seen it, you check it out. But they have a fake family. They're not actually married. They're agents, but their fake family includes Natasha and her sister Yelena. And is
Yelena Florence Pugh?
Played by Florence Pugh. The older Yelena played by Florence Pugh, who is, I guess, her fake sister.
Yeah.
Natasha's fake sister. Then we see them having a daring escape from the American authorities. They're back in Russia, I guess. And at that point, Natasha and Yelena are taken off to be part of the Red Room, which is where Natasha learns how to be what she becomes, a widow. We then cut into the future and we see Yelena, still part of a Red Room now, and a very highly accomplished assassin. She's being mind controlled to do that. So this is all in the first 10 minutes. So,
Are we talking mind controlled on this kind of level of Winter Soldier?
Sort of, but in a different way, different methodology.
Okay.
And she is free from her mind control by the MacGuffin of the film.
Of course.
And she then seeks out and mails more of a MacGuffin to Natasha, who the film is set after Civil War.
Okay, so it's in the blip gap.
A blip gap. So after Civil War, before Infinity War. So at this point, she's being hunted by Thunderbolt Ross for being a criminal fugitive type thing.
Oh, so no, it's so it's well before the blip.
Well before blip. So no Thanos yet.
Yeah.
It's that bit where it's a hunted criminal and
yes.
And then we meet one of the protagonist of the antagonist of the film, like this Taskmaster. Probably everyone's seen Taskmaster in the trailers.
Yeah.
Won't talk too much about that other than to say, it ain't your mama's Taskmaster. And you'll be shocked and appalled to hear the Taskmaster joins the pantheon, the growing and endless pantheon of forgettable Marvel antagonists. They just keep pissing them against the wall. Now, I know a lot of people go, Taskmaster in the comic books is really cool, and they do, and none of that. But the family dynamic of this film, we see later, stuff happens, because I don't want to spoil too much, but Yelena and Natasha need to team up and sort of go and grab their dad who's in jail. We need to go and find Melina, Rachel Weisz's character, and sort of reform that fake family unit that they had. When they're on screen together, it works.
Well, even in the trailer for it, there's bits where they come together, they're sitting around the dinner table, they're all in their uniforms and stuff, and they're talking. So sit up straight, you get a bad back, because just the banter between those four characters, that looks great. That's like, okay, if this is the way they're going, I'm in.
And David Harbour is, he is kind of the butt of a lot of jokes, but it just kind of works really well in this dynamic because, he's a goofy dad, right?
Yeah,
and so
it's not like the soap opera dad.
Yeah, and it works in a way that, say, go to Wonder Woman 84, the way he treated his male characters, it was just kind of, it was just ridiculous.
Yeah. They're literally interchangeable.
David Harbour he's a delight. And Rachel Weisz is incredible in it. I'm a huge fan of her. Yes. She was one of our film challenge things. She was the one to got us the Death Machine. She's a wonderful actress. Yes, don't see enough of these days. Florence Pugh is incredible as Yelena. I'm a huge fan of hers. I think I noticed her first when I saw Fighting with My Family, the WWE Rock, the movie The Rock produced about the British. What's her name? The British professional wrestler.
The one
who escaped.
British Bulldog.
Yeah, she's crazy for the British. I would pay to see that.
Depend the entire WWE.
She plays Soraya Knight. Well, I can't. That's her actual character. I can't remember her character's name. Anyway, but she was. There's a film. If you haven't seen it, you're looking at a wrestling film. Trust me, see it. It has absolutely no business. Paige. It's a wonderful film. I thought she was great in it. She's great in this. She really has good chemistry with Scarlett. The lack of a strong antagonist really lets the film down for me. You'll make up your own mind about it. Some of the accents are pretty iffy. I'd just like you to pay close attention to Ray Winstone's accent, because it's probably up there with Tarantino's Australian accent.
He is not good at making accents.
So I don't think he's giving away too much. Just keep an eye on that for you. So yeah, the action set pieces are good. Where I think the weakness I decided on this was that I don't care anymore about what I don't really care about what this film has to say about Black Widow, because I know what happens in Black Widow because I've seen Endgame.
Yeah.
This film, I've been saying it for a long time, should have come out 5 to 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And the fact that they sat on it, I have no idea why they thought no one would want to see it. Like, even if it was after the Avengers, that's 2012, right? So 2013, 2014, so 6-7 years ago, people would have been psyched to see this movie.
Yeah.
And it would have made a lot more sense if we wanted to tell something like an origin story.
Yeah.
About why Black Widow is who she is, where she came from. People would have been all over that shit. The fact that it's done now, after she's dead, her character's dead,
without any, like, if there had been a growing thread for the Black Widow character in between Civil War and the other two magnanimous Avengers movies, of her having this kind of like pull for family or something like that, that would have worked as a catalyst on why does she think that way? Why is she suddenly so invested in keeping the family together or something? And then that being the nugget for this movie, yeah, maybe. It's like, if you're going to be fucking around with the chronology of a movie, and kind of, oh yes, we're going to start with the death of the character. How did they get here? That sort of stuff. You have to make that journey very, very, very poignant.
And there's never been any mention of her sister before this point in time. We just retconned her.
This is just like, oh, here.
I mean, yeah, it would have been, maybe if it even if it just dropped a hint into me, you know, like a cameo or somehow got the impression this film had been planned at some point to happen. It's by making it sound horrible. It's not horrible. You'll probably go along. You'll probably dig it. I and Michelle, who was with me, both sort of said, I just don't feel like I really engaged with the film or care, in the sense that half of the strength of the Marvel films is you know what happens in that film matters to a wider storyline.
Question. Do you think that this is potentially a backdoor for Florence Pugh to carry on the Black Widow name?
Yes, because the after credit scene and fingers in your ears. Let me just say the after credit scene gives a very strong indication that it's the case, that we will be seeing more of Florence Pugh Yelena in a future Disney Plus series. Disney Plus series. Whether she's in the movie, maybe, don't know. But I absolutely guarantee you will see her in a Disney Plus series coming up soon. Hopefully that is not giving away too much about the after credit scene.
I know.
You know, because you just said, "Oh, what? Did somebody tell you?"
No, I found out that a certain actress was in that and was like, "Oh, okay," and then I realized where else she had been and who she was interacting with, and now I know what they're doing.
You can also just check Florence Pugh's IMDb page. It's all right. It's all right there, and it says it's coming out later this year. So,
oh fuck! Okay.
I don't know how much of a spoiler that's going to be if it's on IMDb.
Yeah.
That you can say it?
Go on.
She's on IMDb, people.
Don't blame us.
She's going to be on Hawkeye.
Yeah.
She's credited with 8 episodes of Hawkeye. So she's, if the post-credit scene gives you a strong indication, she will not be cameo. She'll be a big part of that series.
But that makes it even further evidence where my mind went, and they're going to go with the Thunderbolt squad. They're going to have Hawk Girl or whatever they end up calling her.
It's going to be Jeremy Renner's daughter is going to become the new Hawkeye.
There's going to be Kurt Russell's son, US agent, and Yelena is going to be in there, and then you're probably going to get. I think we've already got confirmed. What's her name from? Tatiana Maslany from Orphan Black. I think she is supposed to be coming in as She-Hulk in the Disney Plus.
Yes, they have been talking about She-Hulk.
Yeah. So I think they're very much gearing for that Thunderbolts movie, which, it's going to be kind of Suicide Squad-y, not necessarily moralistically grey characters that aren't cut and dry heroes.
Tim Roth is the Abomination, will appear in 10 episodes of She-Hulk, according to IMDb. I think I just confirmed over this theory that the Incredible Hulk with head nod is absolutely canon MCU.
Yeah, which could be an interesting play with the multiverse, because that does open them up to the possibility that they could maybe have Ed Norton make a cameo as
one of the Hulks. Because let's face it, Ed, you're difficult to work with, and you don't work a lot these days, mate. There's only so many films that Wes Anderson can make in a year.
Yep. He has tentatively announced his next movie, and Tilda Swinton and him are heading to Spain to film it, but he's not telling us any details yet. So
he's going to be in Nausea too. So there's that. Anyway, that's Marvel for you. It's what you'll go along, you'll enjoy it. You made all the money. You already made $60 million purely on Disney Plus alone last weekend.
Well,
in the United States.
In Australia, it's $36 or something like that.
Yeah, $30 on your subscription. I have. If you have the option to go to a cinema, why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, if you're in a lockdown and that's a bit different, maybe you would kick out $30. But if you can go see it at the cinema, do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Support your cinemas.
Yes, please, because they are wonderful places to go.
We're already looking down the barrel at World Without Cinema. So I think it's time for our weekly sponsor.
Yes. Who is sponsoring us?
Our sponsor this week will be is, I should say, the 1988 compilation cassette tape. 88 Kicks On. Well, this is 80s music in general. I just doing after our sponsors' content here now, because I'm not as organized as I should be. Anyway,
people come to this show for professionalism. You can't spell professionalism without armchair producers.
Sure. And here we go.
All right. Okay. And now a word from our sponsors.
I'm going to have to turn the audio on here for a sec, I think.
I will mute myself here.
So this is the dangers of doing this in the same room.
Feedback.
Fresh from the top of the charts. Kicks on with Darby, Astley, and Bolton, Houston and LRB, Wet, and Ocean, Tiffany and Cheap Trick, 88 Kicks On, cassette, CD, and LP, out now. 88 Kicks On with and Ross. Taylor Dane and LRB, Astley and Ocean, Dobby and Bulbasaur. Sabrina and Bananarama. Ewan Riders in Cheap Trick. 88 Kicks On, out now.
It will be the biggest event of Australia's bicentennial. It will be the major attraction in the world next year. It is the $600 million World Expo 88 in Brisbane. For 6 stunning months, you'll be able to experience the world's best ideas, inventions, entertainment. Together we'll show the world. You'll marvel at the amazing new world in each pavilion. 40 countries, including the US, Russia, China, Japan, Australia, are waiting to dazzle you at every turn. You'll thrill to entertainment from every corner of the world. You'll gasp at the world's most daring acts on water and the world's most modern fun park. For day after day, for night after night, you'll want to return again and again to experience everything World Expo 88 has to offer. And Queensland is ready to accommodate you and your family in Brisbane or on the Gold or Sunshine Coasts. Together we'll show the world. Book now for this once-in-a-lifetime experience, World Expo 88. Buy your tickets now and save. 3-day passes, $40 adults, $26 children and pensioners. You could win a Qantas family holiday at World Expo 88, April 30 to October 30. World Expo 88. Together.
There you go, legend. We're getting feedback. There we go. So, live recording.
Problems with live shows.
If you want to buy tickets to Expo 88,
Yeah.
just get in touch with Brisbane 40 years ago.
Yep, and make sure you use the code 1331 Armchair Producers Rule at checkout, and you'll get
And you have a
56%
chance.
discount.
You have a chance to win an Ansett flight to Brisbane. Yeah, I remember wanting to go to that so badly. But the 88 Kicks On was the first cassette tape I ever bought with my own money.
Oh wow!
So it always good stuff. Prospero Castley, Bananarama. Anyway, I
think the first cassette that I bought with my money was Michael Jackson's Bad.
That's a pretty good effort. Pretty good record.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's pretty good.
I used to have good taste before it got bastardized with Nickelback.
I wanted to play Poison. Open up and say by Poison. It's the first record.
Yeah.
And my mum said no because she thought that was satanic. Which in hindsight is quite funny because those guys aren't cool enough to be satanic. But I think you wanted to talk about, was it Death Note or
Demon Slayer.
Demon Slayer. So
Demon Slayer. Yes, Demon Slayer is season 1 is on Netflix. There's a feature film as well that is available on Funimation. I think exclusively on Funimation, but you have to have a premium account to watch it. So if you are interested, but Demon Slayer kind of got on my radar because a lot of people are talking about it, and there was a big article that I saw pop up about how Hayao Miyazaki, famed director and creator of Studio Ghibli, kind of surreptitiously in some way gave the show his blessing a little bit and said, yes, the animation is really good. And it fucking is. This is a beautifully animated series. I don't think it's really doing anything particularly new or revelatory, but it's a nice heartfelt thing, but the animation is absolutely stellar. It is stunning for the uninitiated. Let me pull up one of these summaries here. A family is attacked by demons and only 2 members survive, Tanjiro and his sister Nezuko, who is turning into a demon slowly. Tanjiro sets out to become a demon slayer to avenge his family and to cure his sister. That is the very basic nuts and bolts of the story. And if you've ever watched any young adult anime, I guess is a relatively good way of talking about it. It's the first season is always about their training, and then it's sort of like escalation every time going forwards and more revelations as they go. It's a beautiful, beautiful animated show. It really successfully blends 2D and 3D animation to really do some unique things with this. Like demons have their it's like individual demon powers, and there's one in particular that really took me. Is a demon in this house that has these drums kind of embedded into its flesh, and you can hit them and morph the shape of the room around him and kind of twist it almost like a Rubik's Cube. And the way that the animation, the 2D animation of the characters and the 3D modeling kind of moves, it feels so jarring, and it really puts you in the mindset of Tanjiro as he's trying to work out the fight pattern of this demon and how to best slay him. I didn't really want to go too far into it because honestly, not much happens in the first season. It is entertaining. There is that little bit of brevity, as is typical in a lot of manga turned into animes, where there's like a little bit, but really comparatively none of the fan service where it's like big tits and like that comical moment where they fall flat in their face and they're kind of squeezing the girl's breast going, what is that? It's soft. And I don't know what that is. And that kind of stuff.
Blood spitting at their nose.
Yeah, there's none of that extreme. And it is just kind of Tanjiro and Nezuko in their first, well, it's the training sequence goes technically over a long period of time, but I'd say that for lack of a better descriptor, their first year, this is Batman year one for Demon Slayer, but the animation, if you really appreciate good quality animation and very good dubbing, particularly on this one.
Do you watch the dub version?
I've watched both variants because I haven't been able to sleep for a while, so I might as well. And
do you have a preference?
For ease of watching, the English one is obviously easier, and the quality of dubbing has greatly improved from like the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, where it was just atrocious. And I was talking to someone at work today about Sailor Moon, and in the first run of Sailor Moon, there's like 6 different actresses who did the voice of one of the characters. Over the course of it, it's just so jarring and horrible. This is taken far more seriously as an extension of the anime lifespan, but you're never really going to be able to beat the original dialogue, no matter what country it's come from, whether it's English language being dubbed into something else.
I can never watch, if I'm watching a foreign film and Netflix and there's a dub available, I have to, it's just a little bit off.
Yeah, it's like having a 3-second frame delay, and it's just like, okay, I can cope with this, but I really don't want to because I know that it's wrong.
And I know a lot of people who are big on anime. You can get real divided for people. They get kind of possessive about it. No, you have to watch the original Japanese.
Absolutely.
Subtitle only.
I think that as a show, because it's actually quite a simple show in regards to the lore that it is expecting you to kind of follow on, it is one that you could very easily just read the subtitles, listen to the genuine audio, and be able to still enjoy it rather than feel like it's a labor of love to do. So if you're new into or if you want to get into the anime environment, or if you're hearing a lot about this is a really good example of a good quality show that is not taxing in any way. So like all this lore is being thrown at you left, right, and center. There's a lot of explanation that it's not just exposition dump. This is Terminator style exposition dump, where there's always action to keep the pace going. The animation, as I've said ad nauseum at this point, is stunning. It is really, really beautiful. I look forward to actually watching the movie because the trailer looks bizarre and twisted, but again, stunning to watch, and I will happily watch anything that looks beautiful like that. I wouldn't say that it is young person friendly because it is violent. The demons are demons. They are portrayed as brutal demons. They are variations and bastardizations in some cases of kind of, I guess you could say, recorded demons from Japanese lore, and like the idea of the yokai and things like that, that feeds into this a little bit. So it would be like going, oh yeah, you like Cinderella, the Disney Cinderella, or one of the Hans Christian Andersen books that got vanillaized by Disney, and it's going, yeah, here, read the Hans Christian Andersen version. It's very different, and it's a lot more brutal and scary. It portrays the world as a scary place, and that's what this does. It's not out and out gore, bloodfest, death and destruction at every turn, but it could be confronting for particularly young audiences. I'd say like 8 to 10-year-olds probably be okay with it, but younger than that, maybe steer clear or sit with them if you're the parent or the guardian of a child at that point. But otherwise, it's enjoyable. If you like anime or if you want to have a quality entrance point, I would say this definitely falls into.
So you'd almost recommend it as an entrance point for people who are a bit used to it.
Yeah, definitely, because it's a very simple story of 2 kids trying to right a wrong. That is their journey. And Neil Gaiman would say that the basis of this story is a man learns something, and he is learning how to be a better fighter, to protect his family that he failed at the beginning. And he is learning how to be better. That's his journey. He is hungry for that learning. And as everyone wants to learn and be better, it's a story that you can easily latch on to in one way or another.
There you go.
Yeah.
Should we? I have a couple of things to talk about here. I want to look back around with you in a sec on Tomorrow War.
Yep.
And quickly cover off a couple of things I saw recently.
Sure. What are you going to talk about?
Mad Max 2.
Mad Max 2, brand new movie.
People who have been paying attention and watch regularly might remember a few weeks ago, a few shows ago, I talked about Mad Max. Mm-hmm. And what a strange mess of a movie that was for an acknowledged classic, or sort of a spawned quite the franchise, because we're now up to 4, maybe 5 soon when we get the Furiosa film, which with Anya Taylor-Joy is going to star in.
Interesting choice.
A good one, I think.
I think so.
Mad Max 2 is where it all began, and what people don't, I think, realize is this film was released in the States before Mad Max. So Mad Max, I don't think, ever got a release in the US, or a very, very limited one. Whereas this one was released as The Road Warrior in the United States, if I'm not mistaken. Kind of blew up, and then Mad Max got released, and because it was this little weird cousin of the much bigger, more successful one. Mad Max 2, in a post-apocalyptic Australian wasteland, a cynical drifter agrees to help a small gasoline-rich community escape a horde of bandits. And here's the thing. That's as complicated as it gets.
Yeah.
We meet Max. He is more grizzled, more cynical now than in the last one, significantly less to say than in the first film. This is where our almost mute hero comes to be, and you can see Tom Hardy, I think, paid very, very close attention to Mel's performance as Max in this film, because I think Tom Hardy gets overlooked for that film because Charlize Theron is so good in it, and her character is so well written, and it's such a fun movie. People forget that he did a pretty good impersonation of Max in that film, and so he meets Bruce Spence, who has a gyrocopter thing and takes him prisoner. He has a very cool dog in this film, and he sort of wanders almost inadvertently into an ongoing conflict between the oil, sort of the gasoline-rich little community, and
gasoline,
petrol, mate. and surrounded by, which is being basically laid siege to by this group of bandits who seem to be very interested in fetish wear.
Yeah.
There's a lot of leather on display, like collars and leather underpants and studded things. And
when the world collapses, we don't need to worry about clothing. It's just okay.
Michelle and I watched this the other night because she couldn't record us seeing it. She made the fair observation. It is set in the desert.
Mm-hmm.
These guys aren't particularly well dressed for the desert.
No, but I think it's the same rules that apply in the Mad Max universe as do for female armor in Skyrim.
Yes, very much so. And also some of the haircuts are like some mohawks and stuff like that. Like fairly impractical hairdos for the apocalypse, which is the apocalypse is actually a lot more obvious in this one, whereas we sort of noticed when we talked about the first one was like they sort of go, oh yeah, it's post-apocalyptic, and you sort of go, really? Is it though? Because not really a lot of apocalypse.
It's just outback Australia.
The first one's just kind of like you don't really ever get quite the impression of where does the post-apocalyptic part come into it?
Yeah.
Other than the fact that it's a kind of a lousy place to live. It could be fucking Newcastle, or it could be Wembley. You saw what your ex-countryman did for the weekend.
Yeah.
So none of them were wearing fetish gear. So interestingly,
in their own way, they were.
Interestingly, this film does have being filmed in 1982. It actually has a nice little nod towards the LGBT community in the sense that there is very strongly implied same-sex relationship between one of the main villains and another one of the thugs. He's got the bad guy says the thug. He keeps him on a leash. He seems quite upset when Mac kills him. So
I wonder if that's LGBTQI appropriate or just a weird post-apocalyptic version of John Wick.
Little bit. I took it to mean he said. I think at one point the big bad, the humongous, says something it's hard to lose something you love. I may have imagined that line, but it's there, right? There is. I mean, it's in the bad guys, so but like quite a revolutionary little thing to do in a low budget 1982 action movie.
Definitely.
An implied male on male relationship, which kind of makes sense in the apocalypse, quite frankly, where women seem to be a little bit short on the ground, especially if you're hanging out with other bandits. One thing it does count against this film is the Rick and Morty episode where they're in the apocalypse and the guy with the bucket on his head, he takes it off and he's got a weird haircut and mustache. And yeah, I forget that we couldn't stop watching going, it's a little bit difficult to take Lord Humongous seriously. But he looks a lot like...
Especially the name.
But Humongous, not Lord Humongous, the Humongous. And he does look a lot like the character from the Rick and Morty episode. So Rick and Morty have kind of, I mean, you give it a pass because obviously this is the original. But sometimes things are taken out of something so effectively, it can be difficult to see the original any other way. This one does share some great similarities to Fury Road, apart from just Max's performance. The fact that it turns into a giant chase. Max is basically put to work by the gasoline community to deal with the gasoline community to go and basically pick up a semi-trailer or a truck trailer thing from out in the wasteland you saw, get it started and then bring it back into their community so that they can take a tanker of gas out to find their utopia up north or something. I think is the idea. And then he does, so it's a couple of major set pieces here, just car chase scenes, which is what Mad Max is all about. You kind of gotta put that in there because it's kind of what they do. But it's done incredibly effectively here. This film's not trying to be anything it's not. It's made on a bigger budget than the last one, so it looks a lot better. It's much better written. You really get the impression that George Miller took the time between to it took Mad Max to make this. That was him learning how to make a movie.
Yeah.
He really refined his art in between that and this one. I mean, I think he just made that on the weekends when he could with what money he did. The story was he worked in the emergency rooms as a doctor.
Yeah, that's
to make money to make that first one. And then I think this is maybe him with some money now behind him, and maybe some professional help. Maybe he's got a cinematographer this time, as opposed to a mate or something. It's really, really an impressive. This one deserves its reputation.
Yeah. For me, the difference between Mad Max and Mad Max 2 is a weird alternative variation of the difference between Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2, where it's a very, very familiar story, but there's refinement in the director's narrative storytelling, where obviously Evil Dead 2 very much embraced more of the comedy side of things. This just really invests and cuts a lot of the cheese factor out, the riddle of the first Mad Max. And it's just reading here that Max has like 17 lines in the whole film, and 2 of them are the same line. So like, okay, yep, you just telling story by showing in this instance. Whereas in the first one, there was a lot more kind of exposition and attempt at telling this story and this relationship. You just see it in this one. It's a director who has obviously got more understanding of his craft.
Just to note, the director of photography on this film is Dean Samler. You don't know who that is. He is an Academy Award winner for, I think he might have won for Dances with Wolves. He did. That's cinematography of Dances with Wolves. He did Apocalypto with Mel Gibson. I know he's persona non grata now. That's a fucking great movie. He did Dead Calm, which is again another Australian classic. He's done a lot of shit. But he's a very professional. He knows how to shoot. He knows how to make a film look good. So he did not do the first one. So he is an Australian.
Yeah.
So I think this is one of his early real big breakouts for him as well. So I think some stuff like that helps. Having the money to be able to hire actual pros really helps. So if you haven't, it's available on Stan in Australia. You know what? I had to go the other way. So the first one's on Stan. This you're gonna have to rent other places. I'm sorry. Quickly, Destination Wedding. I said I was going to talk about it. And I'm going to do it. So I had this film suggested to me by somebody who owns it on DVD. DVD, by the way, is a shiny plastic disc you put inside a reader that looks a bit like an Xbox, but it's not an Xbox.
It is not a coaster.
It could be. In some cases, it may be more appropriately used as coasters. This is a strange film. Now, I had heard of this film before, and I was like, I went in going, okay, I'm expecting something on the level of Love Actually, 4 Weddings and a Funeral, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, My Best Friend's Wedding, kind of level of schmaltzy wedding-based rom-com.
Right.
This is more like something, what was that Andy Samberg one, Palm Springs?
Okay.
This is not in the time travel. It's not have a time loop. But I would say Palm Springs is set around a wedding.
Yeah.
But it's a fairly cynical film set around a wedding. This is an incredibly cynical film.
Okay.
So the story of 2 miserable and unpleasant wedding guests, Lindsay and Frank, develop mutual affection despite themselves. We have Winona Ryder and Keanu Reeves playing Lindsay and Frank.
That's been in a film together since Dracula.
I think so. I think one of the main selling points of this film is it's got those two together again after all these years. And you can tell they love working together. Yeah. And I think potentially maybe that was what they wanted to do, was something to work on.
Yeah.
It is written by a guy named Victor Levin, who you may not be familiar with, but probably the most interesting thing for me about him is he was involved in writing a great number of episodes of producing Mad About You in the 90s.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Which he also did some stuff on Mad Men and a lot of other television. Not a lot of feature films.
Okay.
Now, people don't remember Mad About You. Like, in the great war of 90s sitcoms, it's the
forgotten child.
It's a few back in the pack a little bit behind Frasier, but well behind The Simpsons, Seinfeld, and Friends. Seinfeld and Friends are kind of the great,
Yeah.
the Celtic and Rangers of 90s sitcoms, if you will. There's a Scottish soccer joke for you. I'm worldly. But it was a very dry, cynical-ish, more in the Seinfeld camp than in the Friends camp. I think it actually was somehow linked to Seinfeld initially. I remember Kramer was in an episode at the start.
I think so, yeah.
So it's more like that. So it's a fairly dry, cynical comedy itself. And that's what this is. These two people are fucking nihilistic misanthropes. Like, I should hand in my curmudgeon card compared to these guys. Like, seriously, I have a new idol in life, and this Keanu Reeves is Frank. Basically, so Frank is the brother of the group, and Lindsay is the ex-girlfriend of the group. Neither of them like him very much. They probably have nothing but contempt for this guy. And they've both been kind of invited as a fuck you to a destination wedding, which is being held in the wine country of Southern California, I think, somewhere.
Looks like it from the poster, yeah.
They meet on the plane at the airport on the way in, and they take an instant dislike to each other. But they kind of bond over their mutual dislike of the groom and their cynicism towards the bride, and their general, cynicism towards life in general. Okay. And they sort of end up sort of spending quite a bit of time together. Despite the fact they don't really seem to like each other very much.
Is it kind of played along the lines of the early relationship between Harry and Sally?
No, not that funny.
Okay.
This is a weird thing for me, that this film is not badly written.
Mm-hmm.
Some things this didn't get this film entirely successful for me. One, the title is terrible. Because instantly that title, Destination Wedding, thinks you're getting a wedding rom-com movie.
Yeah.
Like I said, My Best Friend's Wedding, or something, a Julia Roberts film.
Yeah.
You're not getting that. So if you went and saw this film, a lot of people, I think, would have felt shortchanged.
Yeah.
Because they're not getting the film they thought they were getting. They would have probably been at least a bad word of mouth. So they needed a much better title than that. I don't know. I think there was an alternative title called A Narcissist Never Dies. The movie, a narcissist can't die because then the entire world would end. Is the movie's alternative title. That's not good either.
Yeah.
They probably should engage someone to come up with a better title. The second thing they got wrong, and this is a weird thing, because the film's main attraction is the stars are wrong for this particular role. They both thought they're having a great time.
Yeah.
Playing a completely against type, especially Keanu.
Yeah.
Being a cynical, sexless, misanthropic curmudgeon who basically hates life. But you look like that. The writer, you think of a character from Beetlejuice was kind of dark and gothic.
Yeah.
Nihilistic, misanthropic, I don't think so.
It doesn't quite fit. She's always had this element of bubbliness to her. Even, the closest that I can think of her kind of in taking that kind of role is like Black Swan.
A little bit. Needless to say, I don't think the material suits her.
Yeah.
It certainly doesn't suit Keanu. And while they aren't bad at it, sometimes you can see someone who goes, I want to do this, this is different, right? And this is a little indie film he can do in between John Wick films, so it probably took him 2 weeks to shoot it. But these are not the right people to be doing this kind of.
Who would be?
Initially, the first thought I had, Winona Ryder's character should 100% have been played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Okay.
100%. If there's anybody in Hollywood who could pull up.
Wearing his fanboy hat, ladies and gentlemen.
Although, it wouldn't be a stretch for her, right? Yeah. It's not far from Elaine or Selena in Veep.
Yeah.
It's cynical misanthrope. That's kind of what Elaine was.
Yeah.
And she could have done this in her sleep and she would have murdered it.
Yeah.
Frank's character, the first person I thought it was Larry David. He's too old, but he is that kind of level of cynicism that he pulls off in Curb Your Enthusiasm, or he's writing for Seinfeld earlier on as in the basis of George. It's a younger Jason Alexander again. I'm sorry to go back to this. It is a little bit of George and Elaine in this.
Okay.
Those two would have done something. They would have done it a lot better. But obviously, they do not have anywhere near the star power or the box office draw of a Keanu and Winona. So obviously, those two say they sign on to do your $20 million picture.
Yeah.
you're probably going to go okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know what it
Will
costs.
at least cover their costs.
I don't know what the budget was or anything like that. I'm just taking a stab saying it probably wouldn't have cost a lot to make, I don't think.
Yeah.
It's a short little film. So it's fine in a way. Like, I actually kind of snickered sometimes at how dark the jokes were, and I kind of enjoyed that.
Okay.
But it just didn't quite coalesce into a thing,
Okay.
that it could have been, because it was, just like I said, the title would be well off. And I just don't think the stars were quite right for the film that they were casting.
It had a budget of $5 million, so obviously Keanu is working below
Working scale.
And took a box office of $2.2 million. So yeah, an official bomb.
A bomb. It just I don't even know if I remember hearing about it, but you see this at the cinema. Now,
Like as a kind of like a start, does it try to wear that bleak comedy on its sleeve, or is it more hidden, like something like Before Sunrise, Before Sunset, where it's almost that movie has almost accidental funny moments in it, but it's just this burgeoning romance between the two. Is this trying to be a bleak comedy?
I have to imagine it is.
Okay.
It's not. I haven't seen those films,
Really good.
but it's. I mean, they're constantly dunking on themselves, each other, the groom, the bride, their extended families. It's everyone's fodder for a dark joke or.
Okay.
And it's not. It's more sly than
It's not got the tongue in cheek of Palm Springs.
It's not like it's not Andy Samberg, level of comedy. It's a lot darker. It's a little more sly is the word. It'd be a through conversation. Think again, Seinfeld, right? Level of not Jerry landing punchlines on people. It'd be like them sitting opposite each other. In the diner talking,
That quick wit.
the kind of wit, my mother caught me doing what? I was alone. That kind of level of humor, right?
Okay.
As opposed to, joke, response kind of thing.
Yeah.
And in a way, I kind of enjoyed the cynicism, but you didn't quite coalesce into something you got right. It's hard to take someone as likable as Keanu and make him, like I said, a cynical misanthrope who hates himself in life.
Yeah.
Larry David, you can buy that. Yeah, you can buy that. Keanu, that's right. He just seems like a cool guy.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting one because it is coming to the back door and give you something you didn't quite expect. But so look, I would say it's better than you think it's going to be.
Okay.
And I would say this is the kind of wedding movie you watch when you've just broken up with someone. Probably.
So, I made the right choice.
Pretty much. This is the wedding film for divorcees.
There's definitely a market for that, I'm sure.
I told you I'd squeeze it in. We're getting a little on the two. Do you want to spend 5 minutes on
Tomorrow Wars?
Tomorrow War?
Yeah, let's talk about that. Anything else we can say for next time? All right, so Tomorrow Wars, the new big budget Amazon Prime Video extravaganza with Chris Pratt playing Lance Everyman. Chris Pratt. Dan Forrester. In a sci-fi movie where they, through a very obvious, like in the middle of a big game, there is the revelation of time travel, and people from 30 years in the future come back, and somehow all of the governments seem to very quickly kind of go, we believe them, to the point where we're going to reenact conscription across the whole world and send people en masse into the future to fight in this war where we're being told we're already losing.
That's basically during the World Cup final.
Yeah.
People from the future say, hey, in the future, we're always been invaded by aliens. We're fucking lost. We need you to start helping us by sending soldiers using our time travel technology to the future to help us fight the war against the aliens.
Yep.
First thing I thought of, what do we know? Time travel exists.
Yep.
There are aliens who are going to turn up about 30 years from now, start killing people. and they're pretty badass, and there's probably 500,000 people left alive in the world.
Yep.
When these time travelers get sent back,
Yep.
why would we then send people to them to fight?
Mm-hmm.
Why wouldn't we just figure out roughly whereabouts they land or come from here,
Yep.
and then just have a massive standing army of about 3 million people with tanks and bombs? And
if they can organize, essentially, for lack of a better descriptor, a unified Earth to conscript everyone to send them off, why can they go, okay, instead of sending them all off, you're being conscripted and you're going to fucking find as much as you can. We are going to invest in trying to actually stop this before it ever fucking happens. So we don't lose all these people.
The film's conceit is, oh, well, we don't really know where they came from. I never found their spaceship or anything like that. But we know they turned up in Russia.
Mm-hmm.
Russia is a very big place.
Yes.
But you can have like satellites and
The whole world out there with metal detectors.
like standing there waiting. You know when they're going to turn up.
And make nets and catch them.
My first thought was like, why would you send people to the future to fight? Why wouldn't you sit around and wait for them to turn up and just get ready? It's like, I actually had some conversations with people online about this, and I'm like, why wouldn't they? Surely they've got some sort of technology that can help us. We're like, oh, nah, you saw them in the future, they're pretty fucked. Or like, no, so they invented time travel in the next 30 years and nothing else of use, apparently.
Well, there is the throwaway line where it's like, even this, if we had the people and the time, this wouldn't be out of guinea pig test phase. It's like, okay, fair enough. And I do like the fact that they have this ticking time of it can only be 30 years. And as time progresses in the future, that point where they're sending people moves forward. I do like that.
There's some cool ideas about time travel here,
but they don't really do anything with it.
And they never really answered for me that central question. Why are you sending them to the future to fight in a world where there are fucking 50 million aliens in the world? The war's basically over.
Yeah. Why aren't they sending us like, oh, the last 500,000 people, let's send them back.
So now,
as much information as we can, and then they leave the investigation.
And we used to have people sitting and watching everywhere in Russia waiting for them to turn up, and we'll be ready for those fuckers.
Yeah.
They never actually answered that question other than, oh, we don't know really where they turned up. Yeah. But anyway, that was the first thing I thought, and that put me on straight away.
Yeah.
The next we see, but basically, Chris Pratt's character, Dan, is a high school teacher now, but he's a former soldier.
Yes.
And one of the interesting conceits of the story is he is chosen to be sent forward to the future to fight because by that point in time in the future, he had died.
Yes.
But they said like 500,000 people left alive. I think I actually said that at some point.
Yeah.
That means pretty much everybody's dead.
Yeah.
So you could be able to send pretty much everybody. But they didn't talk about that. They made a big deal out of the fact he dies in 5 years or something after the film's, and so he can be sent forward. He and for some reason like, oh, the soldiers we're winning our soldiers, so we started sending civilians.
Yeah.
And so he and a bunch of other civilians are conscripted. They're sent to a room. They're basically given like a day or 2 days training.
And then,
oh shit, shit's going down in the future. You need to go and fight now. And I'm like,
yeah.
What? What? Can you imagine? Like we've been sending soldiers and that didn't really work.
So there's so many breaks of logic. It's like, okay, we already know that the enemy is formidable. So we want to send people into the future to protect. Like, okay, so instead of just metering out the people who know what they're doing as soldiers, as trained members, mixing some of the civilians in so that they can help maybe increase the chances of survival. I don't know. No, we're going to send them all in at the start. They're going to get massacred. It's like, oh, fuck, ragtag team. Wolverines!
Untrained people, they won't even tell, they can't even see pictures of the aliens in training because they go, oh, we reckon if you guys saw pictures of them, you would want to go. I'm like, I don't think they want to go anyway. But like,
they're given this fucking, like, armband thing that will automatically send them back once they've completed their tour of duty. And it's like, if you try and run, we'll know and you'll die and we'll arrest your family and all the people you love. It's like, okay. So you've kind of cut off every loophole there, so why not just fucking show them the alien?
Well, the reason is because the film wants to hold off you showing you what the aliens look like. Mm-hmm. When they do get to the future, the first reveal of the alien is kind of cool.
Yeah.
I'll give it that. And
Yeah.
the first time you see the aliens, I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. I like how they've done it. They do look kind of scary.
Yeah.
The more you look at them, the sillier they get.
Yeah.
And they probably should have shown us less alien.
Yes.
And as the story goes on, in the future with the aliens, they can do whatever the script needs them to do. You know,
we're flying
they can
squirrels.
fly, they can be bulletproof,
They can swim.
they can shoot
Hundreds
darts
of
at
miles.
people.
Yeah. And they are very obviously shown as being brutes, as being animals. And so you very quickly go, how do they control a spaceship? How do they get here then?
Well, and of course, the only person who invented that turns out to be Chris Pratt, Dan Forrest's wife, played by Betty Gilpin, who is criminally underused in this film.
Yes.
Betty Gilpin, don't know the name, was in Glow. She was in The Hunt, which came out last year, which you haven't seen.
I want to check
She's
that
good
out.
in that, and she's a badass in that. So Betty Gilpin, severely underused. You know, in the future, Dan meets Colonel Forrest, and turns out to be he's a little daughter from the start of a movie. Didn't see that come. Played by Yvonne Strahovski, the Australian actress from Handmaid's Tale. She's fine, but you know they're hunting, doing science in the future, so they can create a toxin
to successfully kill the females because the males
They already can kill a male, but they can't kill the females.
Yeah.
And they do some science so they can kill the females. And then, of course, because the film needs it to happen, the secret ocean base gets invaded by monsters and
ridiculous swarm of them. Is like, okay.
But a bit that's I guess supposed to be exciting, but it just annoyed me. I'm like, they can, as you sort of said, they can swim hundreds of miles, kilometers an hour.
They keep on kind of going that they have extreme levels of smell and things like that. It's like, okay. And the premise, getting into spoilers, I guess, they managed to capture a female and they take it to this offshore, basically like a reconstituted oil rig. And there's like doing all of the slow overtime father-son bonding. I think it's a tour of 7 days that he has to complete. If he dies before then, tough shit. If completion is 7 days, it'll automatically, wherever he is in the world, will get teleported back. And of course, she starts off by saying, "Oh, I'm not interested in, us getting back together and things like that." And there's a throwaway line where Chris Pratt goes, "Oh, what's that smell?" She's like, "Oh, it's something that she secretes." It's like, "Oh, that's not important at all, no." But it's in this closed room in the middle of the ocean, and they can smell it. Apparently all of the males can smell it, so they all just en masse come. And it's weird how they managed to convene so that they all attack at once as well. It's not sort of like, oh, well, the ones on this island are literally going to be closer, so they're going to get there sooner. No, they all, for cinematic effect, come all at once.
And one of the dumbest scenes in the movie for me, and there are many.
Yeah.
They finish the toxin, and he's got to wait for his time to run out, and he's disbanded, be able to travel back to the present with the toxin.
Yeah.
They're trying to run away from the monsters, and eventually at one point they run out of space, and his daughter sort of falls off a gangway and into which was supposed to be an artistic shot. It just looks stupid to me. Into a sea of the monsters underneath it.
Yeah.
You can see in slow motion of her reaching up like that. And of course, Chris Pratt, humanity's last greatest hope to survive it, decides to jump in after her.
Yep.
I don't know what he was hoping he did. He just jumps in after her. She's dead, right?
He's being a good father, man.
Fortunately, of course, the plot spoilers. Shock and horror. He doesn't die. His doohickey takes him back in time to avoid being killed by the monsters. And when you get back, the film changes tack in from the present.
Yeah.
At that point in time, all of a sudden it sort of stops being.
It becomes the Goonies.
It does. The time travel thing sort of stops and goes away.
Yep.
And
the world governments have given up working it together, and there's just mass rioting and looting. And so these organizations that have been sending people, millions and millions of people, off into the future to certain death, then go, oh no, we can't help you at all. So you're going to have to make a ragtag team of this fellow teacher, this school kid that just so happens to be ridiculously in love with volcanoes, which of course becomes important because we saw that in the beginning, as well as bringing in Chris Pratt's dad, J.K. Simmons, always great, as James Forrester. And it's like, okay.
But the thing is that the film basically goes, well, actually, one of the main the film now really heavily involves the character's dad, J.K. Simmons, who we have barely seen. We've met once, an hour or so earlier in the picture. And you see, once you remember J.K. Simmons, then you're like, they had J.K. Simmons in this.
Yeah.
And they used him for that, for like half an hour of screen time.
Yeah.
You're like, wow, that is criminal.
Yeah.
Like, and he is cutting it. You got the
Yeah, I think this was filmed when he was kind of working out for being Commissioner Gordon, and that sort of like side hustle that he was going to be this really buff, just cut deadly Gordon. He's just sort of like, finally I get to show off my body a little bit in this movie.
I don't understand why you didn't use him more, but like all of a sudden he becomes a very important character.
Yeah.
Despite the fact we don't know really very much about him over that one scene earlier in the film, and he comes back
positioned up.
Cut to them now going, Betty Gilpin basically figuring out, we never saw where they landed. What if they were here all along? And of course that comes in the next global warming message about them thawing out. And
every clue about everything is so painfully obvious. It's like, oh yeah, this kid in my class is obsessed with volcanoes. Sure, that's not going to come back to me. Oh, that guy, he keeps coming back and doing repeat tours of duty. Why have you got a talon around your neck? That's not going to be important at all. It's just
using some very, very sketchy logic. Yeah. They figure out where in Russia they might have been, and it just gets dumber. Because when they find, spoilers here, if you don't want to know what happens at the end, tune out now. We'll talk to you next time. But they find where the crashed spaceship is, and all of a sudden it's aliens and the thing is swearing. All the way through, I was feeling the time travel vibe was feeling very Edge of Tomorrow.
Yep.
Like a sheet. Like we've got Edge of Tomorrow at home, and dollar store. We ship Edge of Tomorrow.
This is Pedge of Tomorrow.
Yeah, I know it's genuine story when I see one. It's very cheap, Edge of Tomorrow. But now it's all of a sudden, the crash spaceship is very thin and a little bit alien. Aliens, again, films significantly better than this. And they're like, oh, well, we've got the toxin, so he's going to go in and stab all the fucking aliens that are in the spaceship with the toxin and kill them that way. I'm like, what's the first thing I would think of? Is like, put enough C4 in there to blow a hole in the center of the earth and just go walk a couple of Ks away and go, click.
Yeah.
And then go back over and see if there's anything that needs to be cleaned up, right? And that's what they end up doing, of course, because they fuck it up.
Yep.
And a bunch of aliens get out. Yep. And then they go, oh, no, we have to blow it up. And you're like, why didn't you just do it in the first place? It's a sensible thing to do. Why would you try and go in and, your ragtag team of, hopeless people trying to stab, nah.
It's
just, and I was looking at that. The funny thing is, people online saying about how clever and how fun and exciting this is. I'm like,
I don't get how they think it's
clever. I mean, it's not. I was bored.
Yeah,
I was very bored, and I just thought that it always skips in logic. You're going, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just do the simple thing?
Yeah.
Why would you stab them with a toxin? Why wouldn't you just blow them up?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you take pictures and video and upload it to YouTube? And then wait for the government to come in and go, oh, actually, now that it's on YouTube and everybody knows that they're here, we'll nuke the fuck out of the place. Or you'll send a platoon of soldiers. Like, why would you do this?
And now they're talking about a sequel, and it's like, okay, so it's probably going to be that there was another one escaped and survived, and it was a female, and it's going to lay some eggs, and that's how it's going to still continue on, and it's still going to end up like, yay, it's all over. Let's do a little bit of Terminator 2, where it's like, oh, it's the end. It finished in Terminator 1, and now suddenly it's going after. It's just repeating again, but this time it's slightly different. It's like, oh, for fuck's sake, no. And if Chris Pratt's character is like, no, we changed it. We changed the future. This can't be it. I'm going to shoot someone at Amazon.
Well, Amazon paid Paramount $200 million for this. I believe the idea was for this was going to go to cinemas.
Yeah.
And from what you hear, a lot of people have ended up watching this on the Amazon Prime platform. So, and the Amazon know whether it's worth their while. It seems to have made an impact in the.
Yeah.
Apparently, people are like, oh, no, like the politics involved now again, because apparently people are like anti Chris Pratt because apparently he's a full-on Christian or something. I'm like, I had no idea.
There was something that he said a while ago, and it's just been dredged up again. It's like, actually, you're taking that a little bit out of context, but okay, I'm not gonna debate you on this.
I don't care what he does when he's not working. He's a good actor. I like him. I thought he was good in the Guardians films. I liked him in Passengers.
I liked him in the Jurassic World movie. I think that this was one of his most boring roles because
he usually plays up a light-hearted character. He's playing the straight man.
Yeah, and he looks bored as well. He doesn't have anyone to kind of play off.
The comic relief in here was sort of supposed to be done by Sam Richardson.
Yeah,
he plays Charlie, but he hasn't got a lot of screen time.
No, he doesn't. And they when they're kind of going, when they go back in time, forward in time, they go in and it instantly becomes like this attempt at exfiltration with these important vials. And the way that it's shot and the choreography of the sequence of him just kind of going through, it's like, okay, they're trying to do like genuine squad tactics and things like that, but they're not playing up that innocence of the people that they don't know the terminology and how to actually do this, and it's just left kind of nebulously kind of androgynous, and it just doesn't feel right. It's like, okay, are you trying to be serious or are you trying to just be an action movie, in which case you're failing at both because the story is not strong enough for a serious story, and it's certainly not funny. So what are you trying to do? It feels like there's been. It kind of feels like the type of movie that's been had too many chefs playing with it. You know. Yeah, I don't know. I've been kind of stunned. It's a little bit like Army of the Dead. A lot of people said how much fun they had with that and how much they enjoyed that. And I was just sort of going, well, I thought it was kind of crappy. And I was, again, it felt like very much like that. It's like, oh, this sounds cool. I'm looking forward to it. It's too long. There's none, all the things you just said, I 100% agree with. It's a weak story. It constantly, breaks logic and makes you go, why would you? And it's really not a very good film for me. I thought it was pretty poor. Yeah. Disappointing from Chris McKay, the director, who I think directed Lego Batman movie, which a lot of people really enjoyed. Yeah. I didn't, but he also did some work at the Lego movie, which is again pretty good. Mm-hmm. I mean, here's one of the top used or like viewed quotes from the movie dialogue-wise. James Forrest and Dan Forrest, and there's just dialogue. Did you tell it to die? Yeah, it worked. Why didn't you tell it sooner?
Hilarious.
Sure. I don't care. Just finish, please. Yeah, not good. Very, very bad.
If you want to check it out, please do. Just set your expectations to low.
Yes. 100%.
That's a long show. I guess that's us for the week. If we're not mistaken.
Yeah, we will be talking about what did I choose? Bullet for our chain movie of the week. We won't have a Disney show for quite a while.
Heaven forbid.
Yeah, I think the next one is going to be Hawkeye, and the stuff that I've seen of that, I am not interested whatsoever.
You got Disney Plus, so you'll probably watch it anyway, right?
Well, I'm not paying Disney any money for anything. I am now refusing because they are just destroying cinema. I've said too much about them in the past already.
Yeah, well, I mean, yes, we have. I think we'll probably get a movie before we get a new TV show. We get either Shang-Chi or the Eternals for this next thing.
Oh yeah,
I think that's supposed to be October, November dates for those.
Yeah,
for those films. So, but you know, you probably are sick and tired of hearing us yammer on about Marvel and Disney.
I will give you some potential homework. So, I mentioned to you about the show Resident Alien, and I think you should give it a try because whilst it is a different type, it's quite different to Brain Dead that I previously suggested to you. It's kind of got it feels a little bit similar to that in its style.
Ooh, sci-fi.
Yeah. It's not a great show, but there's something about it.
Okay.
And if you don't like it within the first 20 minutes, don't bother watching it.
How do we watch Alien?
It is on 9.
9.
Yeah, so it is. They've got their free streaming app. 9 now. You do have to watch some adverts, and you'll get Love Island UK, and it's like, well, why are they filming all of this with lots and lots of sunlight? There's no sunlight in England. Stop it.
I just happened to notice on my television for some reason that Channel 7 has disappeared, and it probably disappeared quite some time ago, and I didn't notice. I don't know why it has, but I don't really care. So I will use their free app for the. I think it might be the first time I've ever used one of the freeware catch-up apps in Australia.
But yeah, there's something endearing about it, and it's not an out-and-out comedy, but it has got some funny elements to it. So I'll be interested to get a little bit of your take on that.
Okay, I am moving house this week. So if we manage to get the show off the ground next week, this will be the last time you'll see this room. So bon voyage to this latest.
The latest iteration of Electric Hand Sandwich
Studios. They change annually. It's a kind of tradition. Not one I enjoy.
No, but you know,
Melbourne real estate. What can you do?
Exactly. Real estate in the time of COVID. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching along with us. We do appreciate it. Please remember to subscribe to our Twitch channel if you can. If you've got a Prime account, you can use your free Twitch Prime account, and it just gets us a little bit of notification. Make sure you like us on Facebook, on YouTube, at youtube.com/thefriedbrain, where you can watch all the shows immediately after we've aired live, as well as on all podcast channels. Just let us know as well if there's a movie, TV show, music, books, anything that you think we should give a try and you want to hear our thoughts on it. Give us a shout out on any of those platforms. Fried Brain Productions is on Facebook. You can tweet at us, The Fried Brain. And yeah, so it's easy to get through to us. And we would love to have a bit more interaction with you guys. So thank you very much. Good night.
Good night.